You're alive. Awesome.
If you just give 30 seconds for everybody to come in, I'll just post a link on the page so that everybody knows where we are. So in 30 seconds, we will be going on air. Just give everybody a chance to get here.
Yep.
So everybody, welcome to this full circle Q&A interview with Shin Lim. Shin, thanks for coming.
Hello, everyone on the internet. How's it going?
What time is it over there, Shin?
4. Exactly.
4 p.m.
Lucky number.
9 o'clock here. So I'm going to start with a very controversial question, and I want to get this out of the way. I know you didn't expect me to ask this question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. And I think if we get this out of the way early on, then it means that we can...
I think I already know what the question is, so go ahead.
It just means that if we get this question out of the way, then we can proceed with the rest of the interview and there's no problem. So let me look at how the question was phrased. So the question is, are you ever going to answer Alan Rorison's questions, or are you just going to keep completely ignoring the truth? So, I mean, I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming that you'll know exactly what that is.
I do know exactly what it is. I think they were asking it regarding the my previous Q&A with Murphy's Magic, and the question was avoided. I didn't see any of the questions that were being asked. So Kyle, who was the guy interviewing me, he saw all the questions. I was just looking at his face. I wasn't looking at any of the questions, so I didn't see any of those questions. If I had seen it, I would have said something about it. However, regarding the whole issue with me and Alan, it's been solved. We sat down finally to talk about it, and yeah, we're both happy. And if you really want details on exactly what went down between me and him and how it was solved, you can check out either my YouTube channel. It says Shin Lim and Alan Rorson, or I'll post a link on my Facebook, or I don't know if Full Magic Circle will also do the same. But yeah,
I'm sure they'll post a link.
There'll be a link to my video. I'll be explaining everything that went on, how we solved it, and also another link to show Alan's version of the effect, as well as Alan's video describing the situation between me and him, how it's solved, and how everything's good between both of us. So yeah, it was a controversy about a month ago. Now, not so much.
Okay, so now that's dealt with, and I'm a big believer in getting that sort of stuff out of the way so that we can get on and I can ask you questions about yourself. I'm going to start with a few questions that I've got to ask, and then I will pick questions from everybody else. So I'll start with the easiest questions so people can become acquainted with how you became what you are today. Where did you first catch the magic book? How did you start in magic?
Well, yeah, I get asked this question a lot. It started when I was 16. And my older brother showed me the slip force. So for those who don't know what the slip force is, it's just, let's say you want to force the top card, you riffle down, they say stop, and you slip it up. I don't do that anymore. But he showed that to me. I remember him showing that to me, and I was so fooled. I was like, how the heck can he read my mind so many times? Because he did it, I think, like 10 times to me. And he told me, well, you can learn it on YouTube. That's what he said, because that's where he learned it. As well as from a friend of his who was a magician. So my older brother is not a magician, but he learned it quickly and then showed it to me. So after that, I went on YouTube, and there's a bunch of free tutorials. I'm sure you guys know of tricks, sleights, very basic effects that you can learn on there, and that's kind of how I got started. Spent like hours upon end of my free time during the summer learning card tricks because card tricks were like the cheapest things. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started and pushed into the whole magic scene.
So a question, because obviously based on your answers, I'm going to try to deviate sort of questions from the answers that you're giving. What are your thoughts on YouTube exposure in the sense of like tutorials, you know, for like flourishes and slides and stuff like that?
It's weird. It's actually weird because I also release products and it's being revealed on YouTube. And yes, while I do have a problem with that, I kind of can feel for the people who can't afford magic because when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to buy magic tricks because first of all, I didn't have money, and my parents wouldn't let me buy expensive DVDs. Those went for what, $30? When I was 16, $30 was a lot to me. So it still is a lot. So learning magic for free was like a gift. You know, it was so special. Like when I saw, oh, I can learn that right now for free. I can learn how to do the pass. Like that's amazing. Like I don't have to pay for that. Like that's just great. Like to me, it was so special. And I think if it wasn't for YouTube, I wouldn't be doing magic right now. That's the truth. Because then I wouldn't have practice. I wouldn't have been able to get the feeling of performing. You know, you can say it's bad magic because I had very bad technique, but still the reactions kind of gave me hope and kind of made me keep on doing magic and keep on practicing. So I think it's a good thing, actually.
It's quite a controversial question, a controversial answer, which is a very difficult question to ask. Sorry, a very difficult question to have you answer. And I hope I'm not putting you in any predicament, so you don't want to be in here. But so from that, when you started that, you said you started at 16. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 22, so I've been magic for 6.5 years.
And is it close-up that you do, or is it
only close-up?
Or is it an aggregate?
Close-up cards specifically. I am moving away from the whole card magic. I'm trying to get into other forms of magic as well. But yes, my main strong point is card magic. And I usually perform close-up on stage. So while I am doing close-up magic, it's projected on the screen.
I understand that. Another thing that I sort of tend to do is I read the old texts like Practical Mental Effects, and I'm a mentalist for people that are watching. I'm not a card expert or a gambling expert of any sort. And I read like Anneman, Practical Mental Effects, Corinda, 13 Steps.
Yeah.
And I take inspiration from the old texts, and I tend to update things like that. Do you often take ideas and sort of update them and make them fresh, or is that something that you do, or do you take...
Yeah. I get this question a lot too. Actually, I get this one more than the previous one. Since I started learning on YouTube, I got the hang of learning magic via the screen. This is how you do it. No written text. They just show the hands, and then you move your hand here and here and here, and that's how you do it. And that's just how I've been learning it for the longest time. That's how I prefer to learn things. I have books. Don't get me wrong. I do read. It's easier for me to learn visually. Much easier. I get all of my inspiration from learning visually, not through text. I have books, but for me it's very hard to collect information after reading something. It's just me, and yeah, I just find it easier to learn visually. So whether it be DVDs or online or yeah.
And you mentioned earlier as well, this sort of ties in with a question that's been asked, and it's the most voted question. You sort of said it off the cuff a little bit, but you said you had bad technique previously before you practiced it out. The question is, what is the biggest mistake that you think most card performers would make, or card performers make?
I think there's a difference between having bad technique and then performing poorly for a lay audience. Bad technique. I still have bad technique. I'm trying to improve some of it. Some of them I did improve, some of them I haven't. So I think bad technique. While it's bad, I mean, I don't think it's the biggest problem when it comes to performing. I think for me at least, for my personal experience, I remember. I think it was around. I think it was like 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I first started Magic. When I first started learning Magic on YouTube. I learned a lot of like the flourishes and all the crazy cuts and all the sleight of hand impromptu card tricks that were very flashy and very difficult and were very visual. Now, while that is not a bad thing, you can't do that for 10 minutes straight for a layperson because they will get very bored and confused. Because the problem with a lot of that magic is that they're made for magicians. So I learned this. You know, when I performed at a restaurant, they I was getting an applause, but it just wasn't very. It wasn't as strong as when I saw other magicians perform close-up magic. And when I mean close-up, I'm like classic close-up magic, like the cups and balls. And I told myself, wait, but the stuff I'm doing is way harder. I'm using way more dexterity, and it's more visual. But at the same time, why is that other magician getting a better reaction? And that's when I started to learn, okay, this is actually mainly for magicians. So while I did like the visual aspect of it, while I did like the technical aspect of it, I still didn't understand how lay people look at magic. So what I've been doing and what I have done and what I'm still doing is to try to understand what a layperson appreciates when they see visual magic, whether it be with cards or coins or anything. And that's what I think what's most important is how to construct your routine so that they can appreciate it. You know what I mean?
I think the nicest way to put something like that is the difference between MDs and PDs. And an MD is a method-driven effect, and a PD is a performance-driven effect. And often performers tend to appreciate method-driven effects because that's the one thing they see. And I think it's very easy to cloud your own judgment in the sense that what's really important is the method's actually irrelevant. It's the performance that you deliver that the audience are going to see, because the method's the only thing that they don't see, essentially. So,
and thank you. You answered it better than I did, so there we go.
No, just bouncing it off the back of what you'd said, and it just comes down to the variables of the two, which I think is such a nice thing. So again, another question that's just come in, and I am going to ask these questions, and it's off the back of, because it fits tightly here, I think it's a nice question to ask. When you release material and you put it on the market, do you put that on the market with the thoughts in mind that this is for magicians, or do you put on the market the thoughts that this is for performers, or do you try to meet in the middle somewhere to give a middle ground?
I always try to meet in the middle, regardless of whether it's released or not, because for some reason, every time I create something, I have to say to myself, okay, let's say I was watching another magician release this or do this for a lay audience. I want to respect that magician. So how do I put this? So I wanted to fool myself. You know what I mean? So, but at the same time, fool a lay audience. So I think, so for me, it's like if it doesn't fool a magician, then it's not that it's not impressive. It's just kind of like it's the thing that I want. You know, it's the thing that I like is to be able to fool a magician and lay people at the same time. It's just something I do. I know it's not for everyone, but yeah.
So is that with performance? Would you say that that's what your aim is? Your aim's to deliver a piece that's ultimately fooling, because obviously there's different styles. Some people go for an empathetic style. Some people are gambling demonstrations, and they're using pseudo methods to faux pas an actual explanation. Is your stuff to give them a sense of, I'm not going to say wonder because I'd be putting words in your mouth, but a sense of being able to fool them to a degree that it's just impossible to backtrack. What do you try to sort of achieve when you perform?
For me, I try to give an atmosphere of mysteriousness, and at the same time, they know that there's a lot of sleight of hand going on. The lay people should know that there's a lot of sleight of hand going on, or at least it seems to be. And at the same time, I want them to feel like they're in some sort of a different realm, like almost like in a movie. And that's why when I perform on stage, actually, it's a perfect situation for me and my style, because I don't talk, I don't say a single word. A lot of my magic is done to music. If you ever see my routine, 52 Shades, or those who have seen my FISM act, it's extremely timed and synchronized to the music. Very much like a trailer. If you watch a trailer for a movie, it's like when something big happens, the music crescendo. There's a crescendo in the music, and when it's like calming down, it decreases. So it's the same thing, and that's what I try to. That's the experience I try to give to the audience. Is that while I'm not saying anything, I want you to experience something special through me. And that's how that connection is made. So they're like, oh, that's the guy. It's not that's the guy that made me laugh. That's the guy that made me feel like I was seeing something special. You know, it's not just magic. It's an art with a deck of cards.
I understand. Are you a pianist?
Yes. I used to play the piano actually.
Okay, I assume so with a small phrase of crescendo. So, but yeah. So, do you again? Because I asked that question, I will follow up with a question from that. Do you ever source inspiration from the music that's playing? So what I mean by that is you might put on a particular piece of music and you might start to. I'm going to use terms that I don't usually use here, like flourish, or you throw in certain vajazzles and little pieces that just are thrown together that's so nice and beautiful. Do you perform them to the music, or do you find a routine and then find a piece of music that fits it? I hope you understand.
Yeah, that's actually that's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked that. No one's actually ever asked that to me before, and that's actually one of the hardest things when it comes to putting together a routine, is to find either the right routine to fit the music or the right music to fit the right routine. And that's actually the biggest wall that I have to kind of break every time I come up with a new act. In fact, I'm just trying to make a new act right now with involving money and coins and stuff, and that I'm actually reaching that little writer's block, if you will, trying to find the right music. And yeah, it's just, it's for me, I try to make the routine first, and then I use the music to I try to synchronize the music to the act, but even after I do that, I actually change my magic according to the music. So it's kind of like usually I would make my act first, and then I would kind of find the right music to use, and then tweak my magic again to make it perfect, or make it perfect for me. So
have you ever tried performing the effect backwards? It sounds very strange, does that? If you take a piece of music and you play it backwards and you perform the effect in reverse order, by the time that you get to the end of it, it basically means because you've wrote the last scene first, the outcome, the definitive outcome of what you want to achieve, that it's easier to work backwards than it is forwards when you write an effect, especially to music, because the idea is that because you've got that desired outcome, you know the indefinite point it's got to end. So it's very easy to map it in the sense of chapters and bullet pointing to get to that point. And it sounds like a ridiculous thing, but honestly,
right.
I'm a big believer in stuff like that. I always write the definitive end first and then sort of work everything towards it, and it becomes a lot easier to do. So it might be a little bit of something for you to try that.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. I definitely will. Anything that can help,
It genuinely does it, especially if you're just going to write an effect. If you're going to write it, I find writing the last bit first and then sort of working towards it makes it a lot easier. So another question based off the back of this is, obviously music is something that inspires you. I don't know if you I'm not going to get into your personal life, if you're pushed into performing the piano or if you decide off your own back, but is there anything other than music? It could be people, it could be books, it could be something that you see on TV. Is there something that inspires you to create? What's your inspirational process for creating?
Everything. And I know that's a really broad answer, but it really is everything. I mean, for my style, my sort of a cool but modern, but at the same time dark and mysterious, but not too serious style that I have on stage. That all came from just watching other stage performers. That was not watching any close-up performance at all. It was from Cirque du Soleil. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful show. What it is, it's a bunch of like acrobatics, gymnasts, and um, just a bunch of cool things that are just going on. And there's really no words that are spoken. They do speak, but it's not English. It's gibberish really. It's their own language, and so no one really understands what they're saying. But at the same time, during the whole show, they are actually there's a story that's going on. And it's all done through movement and cool scenery and lights and smoke and music. And music's a huge thing, actually. So that was one of the shows that really inspired me to think of a new way of doing close-up magic. Because every time I see close-up magic done, it's always not that it's a bad thing. It's just for me it was the same. For me it was okay. They get to know the magician well, which is great. And then they they do a trick, they get a laugh out of it, and then and then there's a climax and then effect. And it's wonderful, but for me that was just the same. I don't want to be the same as every other close-up magician out there, so I wanted to introduce something new and something different. So I said if I can make my magic somehow like a show or like a movie, then I think spectators will feel differently when they watch my act, and that's really what it was. It was Ka, and then watching stage performers like Yoo Ho Jin, David Sousa, all those guys. They also really inspired me to help develop my style, the way I move, even my magic sometimes, just the visual aspect. If those of you who watch my FISM act, I actually use stage props and stage slights to do the close-up magic, which is I know it's strange, but it's different. It's different.
So again, can you tell everybody just one more time that I just got a message back? They asked what it was that you went to see. Was it Cirque?
Oh, Cirque du Soleil, Ka.
Is that the one where they have like the anacondas and the snakes and stuff?
No, that one is Zoom. I forget what that's called. No, this one is with people, regular people, but they're dressed up in like really authentic costumes. It's really.
I think it's going to have to be something that I have a look at because I'm.
It's my favorite show. It's my favorite Cirque show. I've seen all of it, but I like that one the most.
I'm more of a bookman, you see, so it's very difficult for me time-wise getting out to appreciate things aesthetically and visually. So another question that this is sort of segueing off into, do you have a particular favourite performer? Is there one performer that just stands out to you as being more incredible than anybody else?
I don't know if I want to answer that one. I can give you like the top 5.
You can give...
Can I give a top 5? I can't point out a single one magician.
Okay, so you can't point out one. Okay, a top 5 is perfect.
Okay, so top 5. Let's see. Jean-Pierre Ballerina. David Stone. Because David Stone was actually that was the first DVD I got, so that's the reason. And he's a excellent, one of the best performers. I love him. He's so funny. Let's see, David Stone and David Sousa. Jan Frisch recently, and then Lance Burton. Yeah, Lance Burton.
Lance Burton's who got me into magic.
Yeah?
Yeah, years and years and years ago. The Dove and the Cane act, I think, it's an absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that was actually the first stage act I saw on YouTube. So it's a good first stage act to watch, actually.
It's incredible. The choreography of it is so beautiful, and what makes it so beautiful.
It inspired a whole new generation of manipulators.
It's the timing, I think, with something like that as well. Like you said earlier, everything was pulled off to the beat, and there's one particular moment in that performance that I think is more beautiful than the rest, and he goes to put the dove back onto the top of the lantern, and it flies onto the top of his head. Mm-hmm. It's like a two seconds of nothing. He just takes it off, sort of waggles his finger at it, and then he drops it back onto the top of the lantern. And that tiny little 5 seconds there for me were more important than the rest of it, because it just showed you that no matter what's happening, he's going to make it so beautiful and so elegant that he's never going to seem like it wasn't meant to happen.
Exactly. It's just
Beautiful piece.
it's brilliant. You know, it's the little things that really make it seem so special.
It's strange you brought that up. I had a friend round who's a layperson, who's not a performer, a guy called Dave, and I showed him that yesterday and told him that story, that it was that's what got me into magic. So you have one more left. Who's the last one?
Oh, I thought I got 5.
No, 4 there.
That was 4? Oh, okay. Well, that's perfect then, because and the last person, Tommy Wonder. When I watched his cups and balls routine, to me that was unbelievable. I thought he was using. I thought the table was rigged. I thought the close-up table was rigged. I thought he had like balls somehow going through the table or something like that. I had no idea. It was just all sleight of hand, all just misdirection, and that really proved to me the power of misdirection and the power of presence, the presence that he had. It was really inspiring, really, really inspiring. Gotta love him.
Who would you say, just for people out there, the most underrated underground performer? Because there'll be performers that you know of that are not mainstream, like Lance Burton and Tommy Wonder. You know, and maybe there's a few people that you'd like to point.
Garrett Thomas, I think, to me, is one of the most underrated close-up magicians, I think.
He was over in York recently, was Garrett Thomas. I didn't get to make it, but my friend Tom says it was incredible. So that's that.
I've got to meet him on a few occasions, but of those few occasions, he's really taught me a lot, and he's a wonderful guy to hang out with, and he's just very philosophical. He has a lot of theories on magic. Just a very intelligent guy. Anything he says, anything that comes out of his mouth is just wisdom. So I wish I was like that, but.
So another question that's been asked whilst we're on the subject of creating wonder, one of my favourite performers of all time is a guy called David Berglas. Obviously, I'm assuming that every performer around the entire world knows who David Berglas is, and he created a plot called the Berglas effect, which then is often bashed around as the any card, any number. There's a question that's asking, what are your thoughts on the any card, any number?
Well, I don't usually perform it. I don't perform all the time. I mean, if I'm performing walk-around magic, for sure I will do a card at any number version. Regarding any card at any number, I know a few methods, but I actually don't perform any of them. I do a card at any number though. So.
Yeah, and just to be pedantic, any card at any number is different to card at any number. In what way? Just for the people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Any card at any number is you get the spectator to think of, well, 2 spectators. You get 2 spectators to think of any number and any card, and then somehow they match. So let's say they say 37 and then Ace of Clubs. They count down 37 cards and it's Ace of Clubs. Card at any number is more of a prediction. So let's say you have a little envelope and you say, okay, think of any number. All right, now take it out. Okay, deal 17. And let's say it's the Queen of Hearts, and then say, watch, I didn't touch this envelope the entire time. And then you take it out, it's the Queen. So for me, I don't know. I get really good reactions with my card at any number, so I just stuck with it and never really changed it to do any card at any number. Yeah.
So another question that's just come in now is, what was the first version of the any card at any number you saw? I know this might be a daft question, but I've just tried to keep the questions congruent with the one that I asked previously.
Yeah. Wow, this is going back really far. I got to think about this because I think I learned it on YouTube, so there were like a dozen versions of that. Yeah, think about that one. Yeah, I don't know the answer at the top of my head.
So
I think it had to do with the double lift or something. It was just like a simple. It was a very simple card, any card at any number. Yeah, it wasn't anything special.
If you had to pick one effect that you believe was your best effect, the pinnacle of all your effects, which effect would that be?
That I've released or that I still have, that I've created?
maybe one that you've created, just any effect that you believe is just the epitome of your best work.
I like my FISM act, and that's my favorite, actually.
Can you explain sort of what that is and what it'd look like from the audience's perspective?
Yeah. My FISM act is it's interesting. What I have is I'll put these down because it's too distracting. Sorry if I created a lot of card noises. I apologize. That's just the nervous habit. My FISM act is I have two audience spectators. I go on stage and they sit right next to me on my table. And then what I have is I have 10 people directly in front of me, in front of my table, like close up, so maybe like 10 or 15 feet away. And then there's the audience all the way over there, right, on stage, maybe 1,000, 2,000, or whatever. So while I'm doing my act, I'm communicating with them without saying anything. So I would have 2 cards signed, and I would only use those 2 cards throughout the entire act. So I don't introduce the deck of cards. So I only have them pick a card with the deck of cards, and then I put it away. So the entire 10-minute routine is only done with 2 signed cards. And it's my favorite because it was my first act that I came up with. It has a lot of good moments. I think the reason why I like it so much is because it's a perfected act. I don't think there's anything that needs to be changed about it. I think it's just I've made so many changes in the past. I think it's good. 50 like Where's 52 Shades and my money act and the other acts, things can still change. I still can see some improvements going on here and there, but my FISM act is just, to me, is just, I don't think it needs any more changing. And there are a lot of good moments in it. Smoke coming out from my mouth with the signed card. There's this really cool moment where I take the signed card from one person, I put it in a bag, and then I just show the bag like this, and I just shake it a little bit and change it to the other signed card, the other person's signed card. So yeah, and then the smoke from the mat. Oh, sorry, smoke from my hands with no sleeves. Yeah, so there are a lot of nice moments that I have in that act that I like a lot. So.
Nice. It's a very, very nice answer. We're getting a flood of stuff in now that are coming through. I think it seems to be real relaxed ones. If you were to choose, because you obviously chose your favourite of your own effects, what would you say your favourite effect is by somebody else?
There's so many. Okay, let me just think about this. I might be missing one, but I'm just gonna do the most recent one. That's kind of like, wow, that's like really good. Garrett Thomas's his version of Coins Across. I mean, the Coins Across plot itself it's a great effect, great plot, but the way he does it, the way he performs it, the movement is so clever. To me, that's just genius. So I mean, yeah, there's nothing really like original when it comes to making the gimmicks, but just the way he does everything is just perfect, So for me, as of now, they might change, but yeah. I like that.
No. So on a Wednesday, it's this one.
Yeah. Well, no, because it's his thoughts on audience control, and you can apply that same principle to anything, so it doesn't have to be a Coins Across. So I think maybe I should rephrase it. I think I should phrase it like this. I think Garrett Thomas's thoughts on audience control is my favorite, and it's not so much the Coins Across effect. It's with it can apply to anything, any magic, card magic, money magic, anything. Yeah. So
essentially, it's more the way that Garrett Thomas constructed the routine and choreographed it in a sense that everything worked as an aggregate in symphony to create this overly culminated, beautiful piece, if you will. And that's so when you performing to talk about stuff like this, because I want to get back to we're round about the section of you creating and liking other people's creations. Do you? And this is going to sound like a daft question. Do you choreograph your movements? Because a lot of the time, performing close up on stage, do you overemphasize your movements in order to make them bigger so that they're seen more clearly from an audience's perspective? I know it sounds like a daft question, does that? But
yeah, No, I'll answer it. I do. I actually emphasize it a lot. Even when nothing's happening, I actually emphasize nothing. But it kind of gives the feeling of suspense, artistic direction. It also gives the feeling of elegance when you go like this and there's nothing happening, but you just go like this and the music maybe goes up a little bit and goes back down, and then your hand turns over like this. Uh, During my act, whether it be my FISM or my 52 Shades act, I don't have actual names for them, but I'll just say that. I actually move my hands. I do little flourishes with my hands for absolutely no reason sometimes. And some magicians say, "Oh," but for me, I think that's very important. It gives a very constant elegance to the entire routine. Because let's say if I was doing this sort of stuff, these flourishes, only when magical things were happening, and then when I wasn't doing any magic, I was very rigid and not smooth, it just wouldn't match. It's like watching a drama film or a very serious, sad film or documentary, and then all of a sudden something really hilarious happens. It just doesn't feel right. It's like out of the picture, or something corny or something ridiculous or crude happens, out of the blue. To me that's the same thing. If you're gonna be a serious musician, have the same feel, have the same elegance, have the same music even throughout the entire act. You don't want to. I see a lot of magicians have one type of music for 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden the next piece is completely different, but the magic is the same. So it's really it's just a huge jump, It's complicated for the layperson.
And also, what's nice about it is, just to press another point, is with keeping your movements elaborate and sort of overemphasized. When it does come to performing a slide, it also it's really beautiful psychologically, because you're almost employing sheep theory. And for the people who don't know what that is, it's where you point to one member of the audience, you say, "Can you stand for me?" And the second, "Can you stand for me?" And the third person, you wouldn't even ask, you just point and do this, and they'd stand because they're conditioned to knowing what this means by the time we get to the third person. And because you're like moving elaborately, when it comes to actually doing a slide, you can really overemphasize the movement on the slide, and it's going to look congruent with the rest of the flourishes and little movements, aiding in hiding it psychologically from an audience's viewpoint. And I think that's another nice thing with using that consistency of movement and choreography,
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Just
awesome.
And just to press another question, so they're asking if you could show us a couple of flourishes with the cards, and when you do this, you are going to need to sort of talk, because it means the camera will come on to you, and instead of being on me and you're flourishing when
Right. Yeah. So what kind do they want to see? Just anything?
Yeah, just something.
All right. Okay. Here we go. I don't know if the camera can catch this. This is by Dimitri Eleri. The previous one was my friend Frankie Morales. Really good flourisher. I'll do it again because I love it. Like that. And here is the worm that lives in a house. Let's see. Mouth. And 2D triangles. 3D triangle. That was bad. But yeah.
And that leads to this question: do you flourish when you perform?
I do. I have very specific moments where I do flourish, but I think it is okay for me to flourish during my magic routine sets, or when I perform, walk around, because when I perform magic, I'm not coming off as, "Hey, I'm Chris." Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I'm not coming off as, "Hey, I actually do real magic." I'm an artist. I'm a performer. I'm here to entertain you. This is what I can do with a deck of cards. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm not here to say that I can read your mind or do anything crazy. That's just me. That's just who I am as a performer, and that's why I think it's okay for me to do flourishing, because number one, it attracts attention, a lot of attention. When I do this for a group of audience, instantly everyone turns their heads and looks at me. So I don't need to use a firewall. I don't need to do anything. I don't have to drop a coin and say, oh, whose coin was this? I just do one thing, and it grabs people's attention. Let's say there's a lot of people talking at the same time, right? And yes, they're looking at me, but they're still talking to each other. I can't really start a magic trick yet. So I can actually gather attention by doing flourishes, and it's something very eye-catching about it. Because, when you do a card trick, you have to pick a card, and then you have to say, okay, sign it, remember it, blah, blah, blah. If they're talking amongst each other, they're not going to focus on that trick because nothing magical is happening yet. But if you do a spring, and then you sybil immediately right afterwards, everyone's going to be like, whoa, who is that guy? What is he doing? That's really cool. Then they're going to shut up, and then they're going to start looking at me. And then right after that, I can say, hey guys, my name is Shin Lim. Check this out. And then there you go. So yeah, I think for me it's beneficiary. For other magicians, maybe it might give away the fact that you have a lot of sleight of hand. For me, I really think it helps.
So another question that's just come in. Someone said, I just don't know if you just heard it beep then, but somebody said the interview so far is sweeting. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it means good. I'm not down with the kids. They're asking, because you slipped Chris Angel out, what are your opinions on
I didn't mean to do that. Actually, no, I didn't mean to do that.
and Dynamo?
I'm sorry. Say the question again. I didn't.
What are your opinions on Chris Angel and Dynamo?
Chris Angel. Let's start with Chris Angel. I think that would be easier. Chris Angel. He's a good magician. Don't get me wrong. He knows how to perform. It's just. It's just not my style. I would never perform like him. I would never. It's just not my character. If I was a magician, I would not be like his character, the one he portrays. Dynamo, on the other hand, I've not seen much of him. I actually haven't seen anything of him. I only see some stuff on YouTube, but like him walking on water, actually, I think that's the only thing. Other than that, I've never seen a single TV episode of him. Only recently, when one of my effects, that's a different discussion, but yeah, that only recently I saw his some of his TV specials, but I've never really seen much of him. I've heard a lot about him. I heard he's pretty good magician. So yeah.
So I have a question personally, just going back to something that you said earlier, and I will keep reviving little pieces throughout this just so everyone can get a sort of well-rounded answer on the basis of who you are. You said that you perform to music and you perform on stage. Do you think that because you don't talk during your act, when it comes to having 10, let's say you had a 10 episode series, a 20 episode series, a 30 episode series, that'd hinder that in any sense?
Sorry, repeat the question.
Because you perform to music and you perform silently.
Yeah.
The question essentially is, do you ever perform vocally and use presentation verbally, and or do you strictly only perform to music? And if you only strictly perform to music, do you think that'll have a hindrance on a television style career in the long run of things?
For television, of course, yeah, of course. If I were to perform TV, I would definitely speak. I would love to talk because I want my voice to be heard. On stage, though, it's different because I think everyone is sitting there in a very quiet, civilized environment, and they're supposed to be watching the guy on the stage. So, if I were to have an hour-and-a-half show, let's just say, I would have 1 hour of silent magic and half an hour of talking. But the talking would be very synchronized, very timed, and very structured. I am nothing like the Spanish magicians, so I am nothing like Woody Aragon. I can't jazz. I'm not a jazz magician. I'm not Juan Tamariz. My magic is completely the opposite spectrum from them. So my magic is very synchronized. It'll be very timed, very poetic. Yeah, just different. If you ever seen Yif perform some of his magic when he's talking, that is something that I would do.
So when you perform, and this is just me asking sort of questions around the stuff that you're asking. Again, I know I keep pointing that out, but I just don't want you to think I keep going over the same stuff. But it just moves smoothly into this.
I don't know. These are wonderful questions.
When you come to performing, and you are gonna, like you say, you keep the presentation fairly brief and emotive. How do you create, if you were taking the music away, an emotive dialect? How would you go? And I know it's probably, I don't know if it's something you've ever done, but how would you ever go about creating an emotive dialect to keep people captured?
For me, I think music is 50%. Honestly, if I didn't have music, my magic would be absolute garbage. They would be like, I'm bored. I can't take this anymore. Music is part of my magic. If I didn't have my music, they would not like my magic. That's just a fact. So that's my answer for that. Because I truly believe that when you don't talk and you have no character, the camera's not at your face, they can't connect. Whereas alternatively, if you look at Jan Frisch, if he were to perform on stage, he doesn't even need a camera. Actually, come think of it, they would just watch him on stage, and he performs silently. But because his character is so focused on him, he doesn't need music. For me, it's a little bit different. For me, it's the camera's close up onto the mat, right? So everything's focused on the cards. So that way they can't even see my face, and in some moments. So I need the music to actually help. Because when you synchronize the music with the magic, then it's just everything's good. It's like watching a music video almost. Like I don't know, like watch Miley Cyrus. If there was no music in the background, it'd just be really boring. I mean, yeah, there's cool visuals, but you know, so.
So just again, so people can get more of a rounded knowledge of you. Whereabouts are you connecting from now in the world?
Like, where do I go?
No, whereabouts are you right now in the world?
Oh, I'm in Waltham. It's like 10 minutes from Boston. Yeah, Boston, Massachusetts.
So this is England to Boston. Is that where you grew up, or have you moved a bit? You performed.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of my.
Just tell us a little bit more about you as a person.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think people get confused as to actually where I'm from. No one really knows. Well, I was born in Canada, Vancouver. Absolutely gorgeous place. I wish I could live there. So Vancouver is where I was born. It was too cold for my mom, so we moved to Singapore, which is actually my ethnicity. It's my blood. That's what my parents are. They are Singaporean. That's how you say it. We lived there for a couple of years. I was in school, and then we decided we wanted to go to school. My parents wanted me to go to school, but Singapore wasn't the best place for schooling, so they decided the USA was probably the best place for us to learn. And anyways, America's awesome, so they moved here, and I've been growing up ever since.
And do you find it difficult to sell your style of magic, or I mean, like I said, I don't know what the American demographic buys into. I'm from England, so it's not somewhere that I go and perform frequently. Would you say that the style of magic that you have created or that you are performing is easy to sell to that audience? If you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah, no, I completely understand, and I know the exact answer. Of all the places I've performed, I have not, for when I'm talking about lay people, of all the places when it comes to stage magic, performing close up on stage, I have not performed for lay people in the U.S. yet. And I think the reason why is because Americans, they prefer to connect with a performer that speaks, that connects via comedy or interaction. However, I get booked frequently to Europe and Asia because they appreciate that a little bit more. They appreciate the artistic direction that I take on for close-up magic. So that's usually where I go to perform for lay people.
It's very difficult in England to perform anything like that. Like, no matter what you're doing, they'll lose interest after 5 minutes, and I'm assuming it's the same the American demographic. Not that we have short attention spans. I'm from England, so I can.
Yeah, no, it's a different way. You know, it's a different style of viewing things, and you know, it's just I don't mind going to Spain. I love it.
And I'm gonna just keep. I'm gonna look through now because there's been some more questions posted. And I just want to make sure because we've asked all the ones that are on the voting page. We have a question that's just come in, so let me just take a look at this. 1 second. So I think we've covered all them. So I'm going to ask you some myself because we have got about another 20 minutes, another 25 minutes, and I'll ask you a couple of questions. Do you ever write any of the pieces of music that you perform to? Have you ever tried to write a piece of music to perform to?
No, when I went to the school for music, it was for performance. It wasn't actually for creating. I wish I knew how to create. That would be nice. But I do edit the music that I use. So I edit it according to my magic. So that's how I get it all synchronized. Because via using Adobe Audition, I just kind of put a beat here or move something from here to here. So that's what I usually do. Yeah, when it comes to music.
So here's a question. Another strange question. If everything that you do is so synchronized to a beat, what happens if you accidentally miss a beat?
I think that's the hardest part when it comes to performing my type of magic, or anyone that does something similar. If you watch Yu Ho Jin, or if you watch An Ha Lim, they are also very. An Ha Lim. Okay, maybe let's just use Yu Ho Jin because it's very synchronized. Let's say something wrong happens in his act. It actually looked very bad. I've seen it. Don't tell him I saw it. It just doesn't look good at all. And yes, it has happened in my routine. And when it's not synchronized, and you do the moment of magic at the wrong time, or you mess up, it does not come out well at all. So yeah, it's hard. That's the hardest part of doing synchronized magic is when you mess up one part, you gotta quickly fix yourself because there's gonna be a next moment of magicalness happening, and you gotta get to that part. Or else if you miss that one and you miss the next one, the third one you're probably gonna mess up too because you get super nervous, and it's just and it just won't look good. And the spectators will immediately know you messed up because they're like, oh, there's a crescendo, there's a strong beat. You know, there's an emphasis. There should be happening right now, except nothing's happening. In fact, he dropped his cards on the table. You know, so they know something went wrong. Whereas Tamaris or Leonard Green, you know, they messed up. You wouldn't know the difference.
That's because I think that and just for the people watching that are new to this sort of stuff, I don't really understand this sort of stuff. I mean, like I said, I don't perform this style of stuff myself, but there is principles and subtleties is very difficult to squeeze into something that's choreographed and scripted. Do you think that for the future, and this is just based on the fact that you were saying like Leonard Green and One Timers and people like that can jazz, do you think that practicing, and this is a question that I'm going to ask you for everybody else, not for yourself, practicing a host of principles and subtleties, I'm not necessarily going to say slights because I know that a lot of the time something that's simple, like obviously you don't perform verbally, but something that's simple verbally, it can be often easy to adjust verbals and it can to be adjust something mechanical. Would you say it's good for the people at home wanting to get into card magic and performing to learn like a host of subtleties and principles, if you will, as opposed to effects? You get what I mean? Like, because if you've got 5 effects, I mean, the way that I'm just trying to get the difference between sort of mentalism and the card magic that you do, because I did come from a card magic background, but mine were very much Chankanasta style, you know, jazzing and making sure instead of it being a mechanical equivoque or an equivoque, it'd be verbal. Do you think for people learning card magic, it's nice to learn effects or to learn principles so that in a scenario where stuff could go awry,
Yeah.
As a principle in there to straighten it out.
I think it differs from everyone, and I think when you're starting out, I think method and slice is very important because learning misdirect. Trust me, it took me forever to learn misdirection. I did not understand that concept for the longest time, and I think when you're beginning, yes, method and philosophy, everything, misdirection, everything is important. But the later in life, like for me, for example, I'm starting to have to focus on certain aspects of magic, right? So for me, it's like I'm focusing very much on technical because the camera is just right there, So if you have to be very dexterous, you have to be, very skilled when it comes to manipulating anything. So for me, yes, skill does matter a lot when it comes to performing on stage. But for other musicians, it's obviously different. Not everyone does that. So most people do cocktail or walk around, and you will need to learn a different set of skills for that situation because there's so many things that happen in those situations that you need to be able to back up your stuff if anything goes wrong. Yeah.
And now I mentioned that there were no more questions. We've got a flood of questions flown back in, which is great. It always prompts people to type in. There's a question being asked by Laura. She's asked, how do you feel about the awards that you've won, and what awards have you won?
How do I feel about like competition, or like how do I feel about winning?
What about winning? I mean, like is it something you ever expected that you'd be doing, or and what did it feel like the moment that you actually won, and then sort of talk about what competitions you've done and what awards that you won, if you could, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, winning a competition is great. It's a wonderful feeling. I think anyone that's ever won something is just you're like, wow, you feel like you achieved something amongst your peers, and it's one of the greatest feelings. One of the most nerve-wracking feelings too when you're on stage and they're announcing the winners, like third place, second place, first place. So it's like it's definitely very nerve-wracking. And let's see, awards I've won. The very first award I won was my very first competition, very first convention too. It was my second year doing magic, and wow, that brings back a lot of memories. I did a routine that also involved two people. It was actually kind of similar to my Physimac, but it was very technical. So it was mainly for magicians. Because remember, at that time, I had been learning like stuff from Dan and Dave, just everything like Theory 11 stuff. So just very visual, very technical, no audience management, no misdirection. Everything's just boom, 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 color change, visual, 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 magic for magicians. And that was what my routine was like. So yeah, I won second place for the youth category, and that really kind of helped me really want to start competing and doing really well, focusing on magic more. So that was my first competition. My second one was World Magic Seminar with the Siegfried and Roy in Ninth Burton, that convention. I think it was called like World Desert Seminar or something like that a couple years ago, but they changed it. And I won first place for that one. By then my act changed though. It improved because I actually got some critiques from the judges. They said you should change this and this because it's too technical, so I changed it. And I asked some of my friends to kind of help me with my routine, and I also took their advice and changed my act also. So I think it got much better when it came to World Magic. And then it was the next competition, the IBM competition after that. It was against Johann Stahl, Ben Jackson, Hector Mancha, and Woody Aragon, I believe. That one I didn't win, but to me that was the most important competition for me, because that competition made me really truly realize the difference between magic for magicians and magic for the people, and understanding the difference between the two and trying to have a good median between the two of those aspects of magic. What happened was I lost, and I saw the winners, Johan and Ben Jackson's act, and both of them had their acts are absolutely they're brilliant. Johan was very synchronized to music. Johan Stahl's act was no speaking, just movements, flourishy, visual, but at the same time you connected with him, and that was something that I noticed, and I was like, wow, that's so amazing. He doesn't say a word, but at the same time he's making everyone laugh. He's making everyone connect. He is fooling the crap out of everyone, and it's wonderful. It's an amazing act. Ben Jackson's, on the other hand, was different. It was actually the complete opposite. No music. It was jazzy, but it was scripted at the same time. Very funny, very entertaining. The moment you watch him, you like him. Very likable guy. And so from watching these two acts, it was just like, it hit me. I was like, wow, I need to change my magic because my magic sucks. It's my magic just isn't good. So the following year, I changed my act entirely. I made it all to music, and I had a script. So I had like a poetic little script going on while the music was going on. And the music wasn't like background elevator music. It was actually synchronized to the routine as well. So I won that year. It was 2011. No, yeah, I forget. 2011 maybe. First place. I got audience favorite and first place. And then the following year I won again, 2012. That was the North American FISM. So FISM, you had to win the North American FISM in order to enter the international FISM. So I was NAACM FISM winner for card magic. And yeah, that's mostly the awards. Oh yeah, and then I competed at FISM. I didn't win though. Well, I got 6th, but yeah.
So another question that's just come in is if you could spend one day with any magician, past or present, who would the magician be?
David Stone, because he's fun.
Have you already spent a day with David Stone?
I have, but I want to spend another one.
So David, if you're watching this, get in contact with Shin and go spend another day with him. So could you tell us now, and this is often my favourite bit about the Q&A section because it's something that I'm massively interested in, it's stories. And I was just wondering if you could tell us maybe a story or two about maybe something that's funny that happened, or a time where, and often, more often than not, performers don't want to talk about a time where something's gone wrong. I always find it's beautiful for somebody to talk about something that went wrong and how they rectified it and what they learned from it, because it's a valuable lesson for everybody else to learn from. So could you maybe tell us a couple of stories that maybe sometimes something amazing happened you didn't expect to happen, and sometimes sometimes maybe something less amazing happened and how you dealt with it. And
yeah. This one was very unfortunate, and it actually goes back to the whole question about if I mess up and I get out of sync with the music, how does the lay people look at it? And this is a perfect example, actually. So this is what happened. 52 Shades, I was performing in China in one of the cities. I think it was Shenzhen or Shanghai, I forget. Oh, it's so funny. First of all, Liu Chen was in the audience. So that's already pretty funny as it is. Like, there's someone famous. And Mirko was also sitting in the audience. I go up on stage. The music's starting, and I do my appearing deck. I actually had a version where I showed a card box, and I just shake it, and the deck appears. Then I changed it throughout my performances. But it was the very beginning where I would spread the deck, and then show the color blue, because the aces were blue, so that means the deck has to be blue as well when I spread it, right? Now, the finality of the trick was a color change. It was a color change from a blue deck to a red deck. So what happened was the card on top was blue, and the first spread, I spread it all the way, and it was just red. And I was like, oh god, because I spread it the wrong way. So I was just like, while throughout the routine, I spread the deck. I see that it's red, 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 blue. I go, crap. Okay, what do I do now? And that kind of ruined the finale because it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, he headed from red and it's turning back to red, so it's just I didn't correct anything. In fact, the performance was awful. I got some pity claps, but it was I remembered it was a very bad performance that day.
And
My manager wasn't too happy with me.
in hindsight, if that ever happened again, which we wouldn't obviously want it to touch wood, what would you do in that scenario now?
Well, next time I'll just make sure to set my deck correctly because I instead of setting like this, I turned it around and set it the wrong way. So I should have just made sure before actually getting on stage. If it did happen though, I honestly have no idea how I would correct that because everything is so structured in my act that I can't just change it. You know, I can't like jazz it up and be like, oh, okay, I have a red deck here, and now let's have a red card selected or something like that. Yeah, I can't because like the aces were there, they were blue, they were meant to do something, they were meant to change into a red, and then the blue deck was meant to change into a red deck. But it's just it wasn't. I don't know how I would have corrected it. I think what I did that day was pretty good. What I did was I showed the red deck, and I realized I made a mistake, so I closed it up. I did the turn, and I snapped my hands, and it turned back to blue, and people were like, "Wait, what?" But, yeah.
So what about a positive story, something where something so amazing happened that you didn't expect to happen?
That I didn't expect. Hmm. I think when I was, it was actually in China too. I finished a performance, and we had dinner at the theater. The manager of the theater. We usually would have dinner with them after the performances. So the artist would have dinner with the theater manager, and his daughter was there, I believe. And I was gonna do this trick. I forced the Queen of Spades, and then I would have it appear because I have a tattoo of the Queen of Spades on my chest. So I would usually do that trick. But before that, I was gonna do an ambitious routine. So I was like, think of any card, just any card at all. I just want to picture it right here, just like that. And she said Queen of Spades, and then I was like, okay, watch, I'll take that image and I'll imprint it on my skin. And then I showed her the tattoo, and she just absolutely like she ran out of the restaurant because she got so scared. And to me, that was like one of the craziest reactions for the tattoo. I like that a lot. I was like, you know what? It was worth getting that tattoo.
And from that as well, because there's a really big lesson to be learnt there, in the sense, and I don't know if you've changed the way that you perform that routine to match that. I think what's really nice is it's showing the power of how amazing that come across because it's non-backtrackable. And I often find that throwing in moments like that where it happened in that scenario in a coincidence, have you taken from that and tried to push for that coincidence to happen more often? Do you understand? Sort of understand what I mean?
Instead of like forcing the card.
Like for example, I mean the Queen of Spades. So obviously there's a variable of people choosing pictures and numbers, and if you were to do like a mental equivocate, like Ram Pink's got something called the White Room, which is a beautiful piece that very much make you able to achieve that, and you would hit that probably I'd say 1 in 6 times of performing. I'm not going to go into what
Yeah. No, I completely agree. You know, Josh, I forget if it's called Ignite or something. It's with the Matchbox. I don't know if I'm allowed to go into detail, but the equivocate he uses, you know, makes it pretty easy to get to a queen. So
I mean, because I'm a real big believer in throwing a lot of things out all the time. I'll throw 5 or 6 things out in every single piece that I'm doing, and it's unbelievable by the end of it just how much hits and just how much sticks, and you're creating incredibly impossible miracles that are non-backtrackable, that when they're explained to other performers or if anybody ever talks about it, there's no way for the performers to backtrack it. Like in that experience, the way that girl will reiterate the story is I sat down with Shin and he basically told me to think of any playing card and just imagine it in front of him, and then I thought of a playing card, and he said, "Watch, let me take that playing card and imprint it on my skin." And somehow he managed to imprint a tattoo onto his skin, and
That's an amazing story. It's unbelievable. You know?
that's what I mean. And I think by creating scenarios where you're upping your chances of that happening by just asking simply before an ambitious card routine, can you think of a card? What would that card be? You know, I mean, I have the Jack of Hearts in here. Asking that question, would you say that you've learned from that experience now to take that when you are performing verbally? I know you do perform to music, but obviously it says in close-up scenarios you do perform verbally.
I do, yeah.
Do you take chances like that? Is that something that you do frequently?
Yeah, I do all the time with this. I mean, if they ever say the Queen of Spades, I'm like, perfect. In my head, of course. But let's see. On my playing cards, my Wrath cards, I have a prediction on it too. So I take advantage of that. They're all court cards. All the predictions are all court cards. So none of them are numbers. Yeah, I do take advantage of that. Regarding trying to force that situation, the only one I've actually used was Josh J's on Equivocate. That's the only one I've dealt with and messed around with, but I'm not familiar with anyone else's. Or not that I'm not familiar, I just haven't used it.
Okay, let me just check and see if there's any more questions, because we are coming up to the last 10 minutes. Okay. Just give me a second, chat. I just want to make sure that everybody's questions are answered, because if I don't, I'll get it in the neck when I've finished. Is there anything that you'd like to tell us that's coming up in the future, things to keep our eyes out that you're maybe releasing or planning on releasing? Is there anything that you'd like to inform us about, you know, that we could keep our eyes out if you're lecturing anywhere or anything like that?
Well, I'm going to be traveling a lot, so I'm not going to be releasing anything anytime soon. I'm not going to be releasing anything. So, sorry, let me rephrase. I'm not going to be releasing anything of mine. I might be releasing a couple of my friends. We are doing like a group collaboration project. So yes, I will be releasing their stuff. But when it comes to my own material, I do have a lot of stuff in the works. It's just I'm very busy, so I just don't have the time to produce them right now. Because I'm just going to be performing now outside of the U.S. Yeah.
And are you ever coming over to England? Are you ever performing over in England? Is that something that you?
No, not yet, no. Not that I know of.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Because I've answered a majority of the questions. And is there any? Do you want to show us a few more flourishes to close on? Something you maybe not shown us, or is there anything you'd like to demonstrate for us?
Yeah, sure. Here's a really weird color change. Okay. Actually, a friend of mine actually helped me kind of tweak it a little bit, make it seem a little bit better and make more sense. Quarapan, it's his name. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. He's also Singaporean, actually. It's really cool. So you go up to a layperson and you say, okay, so you know how magicians cheat at poker? We actually palm cards. So you palm a card like this, right? So it's a queen. But let's say you needed another card. So all I have to do is like blow like that and it becomes a 6 of diamonds. It's pretty nice. I'll show you how it's done. See, let me get to cards here. Okay. So what you would do is you would take a random card, and then what you have is probably the ace or whatever card you want palmed in your hand like this. So you're essentially flashing a palm to lay people. You say, watch, magicians palm cards like this all the time. But let's say we want to change it to an ace, we just do that, and then it changes. So it's a nice little one card change. You can do it for 4 cards as well. So let's grab 4 aces. And then 4 other random cards. Okay. So you have those aces actually palmed legitimately. And then you would say, okay, so check out these 4 random cards. If I could palm them like this, Now, of course, you're only palming 1 6 of diamonds. The rest of the cards are right here. But you say watch the 6, and then you do the move. Oops, sorry, that was bad. Don't do that. So you do here, you go here, and you show the aces, and then you can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a cool little color change. It's a little weird, but it's nice because it has a little story to it, so it makes sense.
It looks very nice, and I think what's nice about it is, and it goes back to a point I was making earlier about I'm a big believer of flipping everything on its head.
Yeah.
And I often think the best presentations and premises are ones that are done backwards, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of performers. But by pointing out that people palm cards and showing that palm, you've already set them up for a moment of, oh, he's telling us how this works.
Mm-hmm.
And then because the expectation's psychologically lowered, when the card changes, it creates such a big reaction because they believe you're just telling them something. They're not expecting that moment to come. It's almost like, to liken it to anything, with Penn and Teller, they did one where they ripped up a tissue, a paper ball, and then they said, oh, you know, you have the paper ball palmed here, and then, so they rip it up, and you say, you just swap them like this, and then they open this, and then they say the thing that's really confusing, and then they restore this one. And I think there's that beautiful moment of when you lull the audience into a false sense of security psychologically, and you lower that expectation, and you flip the presentation on its head completely to do something that performers wouldn't normally do. I think that's answers a question earlier on that you were asked earlier as well, is what's the difference between magic for lay people and magic for performers? Because performers say you should never talk about a palmed card, you know, forgetting that the audiences actually know about this stuff and bringing it to their attention and almost making them feel like part of the trick and part of the process, and then stinging them with the kicker on the end. I think that's what makes that particular piece so nice from a choreography viewpoint, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah. You answered it for me, so there you go.
I go off on random tangents with stuff, and I just
It's great.
I like the idea of how it's choreographed to a degree that it just, you know, it makes it work so wonderfully, and I think that pretty much wraps up the difference between performance for performers and performance for lay people.
And the medium between the two.
Where it meets in the middle, because the method's nice as well. So I think that's everything. I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you for your time this evening, Full Circle. I'd like to thank you for coming on. Thank you for answering the questions that were somewhat a little bit controversial, and explaining why you never got a chance to answer them questions for Murphy's, and everything else. There is one more thing that I said I'd ask, and I don't think there's anything. I don't know where it's gone. I can't find it. It was something simple anyway that I should have asked you right at the start. It's fine. But for now, thank you for your time, Shin.
Thank you so much.
We'll catch you soon. So take care, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Later. Bye.